Hi there, this is Justin Rondo, and in this video we're going to go over just some of the conversion lingo that I'm bound to say throughout this presentation. Figured we'd get this out of the way now so that we're all on an even plane. So let's just dig right in, okay? Remember, you will have these slides, so don't feel like you need to write this down right away. The slides are available to you. You'll be able to get these words and these definitions while you're taking your test and your quizzes. Those will be right there in the slides themselves. All right, so I broke this up into two sections. Let's look at metrics when I start using, all these different acronyms that you might not be familiar with. Okay, so the first one would be AOV, and this stands for average order value and is the average size of completed orders over a fixed period. All right, so this is great for different companies that have multiple SKUs. So they have multiple products. They want to know how many people are, how many items are they putting per their cart? What's the actual value of that? So rather than just looking at standard conversions, so just a single conversion or a single order, they're looking actually now with a bit more depth and looking at how much that conversion is worth or how much that average conversion should be worth. So one thing worth noting is, say you do a flash sale or any type of sale, you actually could see an increase in, just raw orders, but your average order value might suffer because there's such a high discount. So AOV should be one of your key progress indicators when you are an e-commerce shop. All right, so RPV, this is another deep metric, and this stands for revenue per visitor and is the value of each visitor over a fixed period of time. So unlike average order value, which is looking at the value of the order, this is looking at the average revenue per visitor to your site, okay? So this will likely be smaller than your average order value because it's looking at the visitor level, and as we all know, not every visitor converts. So that's what revenue per visitor is, and it's another great metric for e-commerce sites. All right, so CTR, I probably don't say CTR too much throughout this presentation, but I will say things like click-throughs and click-through rate, and this is a top funnel engagement metric that is really just about moving people from one step to another step. It really says nothing about the actual, value, the average order value, the revenue per visitor, or even if it's a purchase. Some click-throughs can be purchases, but not all click-throughs are purchases or deep funnel metrics. So that's worth noting. Okay, and so KPI stands for Key Progress Indicator, and I actually said Key Progress Indicator just a few minutes ago. And these are the success metrics that you pick for your page and your funnel. All right, and there's two different types of KPIs that I like to break this down into. There's kind of your short-term ones and your long-term. So you have immediate page KPIs. So what do you want them to do on that page? And on a lot of top funnel pages, all you want to do is move people from that page deeper into the funnel, okay? So that page has an individual goal, but there's also this long-term goal, which would be likely to purchase something or to sign up as a lead, sign up for a webinar, really do something there for a deeper long-term goal. So you have your long-term KPIs there. So every page will have a short-term and a long-term, and in some cases, the short-term is the long-term. For example, in a checkout page. So on that cart, that short-term goal to move them to the next step in the funnel, which would be the thank you page, is also a long-term one of turning them into a customer and making that purchase. Okay, so I also say things like abandons, abandon rate, cart abandons. So this is fairly simple. It's when a visitor adds an item to a cart and leaves without purchasing. These are your lowest hanging fruit, and you can use some really cool methods that we'll discuss throughout this training to find better ways to convert this low hanging fruit. All right. And so now we have the bounce. So your bounce is when a visitor leaves your site without taking any actions. So this is recorded as your bounce rate in Google Analytics. So it's when someone hits a page and then leaves. And so with Google and Google Analytics, it's really, they don't take any action. They could be on the page for quite a while, but if they're consuming content, but say they just leave after that, that might not necessarily be a bounce. So in your mind, but in Google's mind, that is still a bounce. So there's other things you can do to quantify or to qualify bounces that you can use using text like Google Tag Manager. But all things considered, a bounce is when they hit a page, don't interact, and leave on that same page. Okay? So now we have exits. So an exit is when a visitor leaves your site after navigating or interacting with the site or the page. Now, it's important to note that an exit rate, a high exit rate, isn't in and of itself a bad thing. Say you have a piece of content that is supposed to be the last bit of content, the last page of content. Let's say, again, the thank you page. Your thank you page is going to have a very, very high exit rate, but that's not necessarily a problem, okay? Whereas with a bounce rate, that is in and of itself a bad thing, and you do want to reduce bounce rates. You want people to actually be able to consume the content on your page and then make, and interact. So exit rate and bounce rate are different, where one is generally a bad metric, or it's pointing out that there's flaws, whereas the other you have to contextualize. And the other one I'm talking about that you contextualize is this exit rate. Okay? So now we're into conversion speak. So in these examples, I'm going to be talking about things like conversion rates, raw conversions, conversion lift, confidence rates, those types of things. So all things that have to deal with, a CRO campaign or a testing campaign. All right? So first we have just kind of the basic conversion. And this is the activity you are hoping to improve, or really the activity you're measuring with your campaign. All right? So this is really, again, defined by you. You pick the metrics you want to measure. Are you measuring a click? Are you measuring a sale? Are you measuring, a webinar sign up? Are you measuring a subscription? Conversion is completely defined by you and how you are dictating the success of your page or of your campaign. Raw conversions. So this is the raw number of conversions on a page or variation, all right? So this is actually just, the number, whether you had 15 conversions, 50 conversions, 100 conversions, that's all it is. And so, again, we've defined what a conversion can be because it's something that you define yourself. And a raw conversion is just that number. So no percentages, no lift differentials, anything there. It's just the number, okay? All right, so conversion rate. This is the conversion numbers, those raw conversions, divided by the unique traffic, or the number of people that actually saw the page. So this will be a percentage. And I have an example for you here. Say you have 500 conversions and 10,000 unique visits to a particular page, right? So that equals a 5% conversion rate. Right, so 5% of the people that hit the page convert. Fairly simple, and that's really what all of the testing texts that are out there will base, each variation off of. How many converting actions there were versus how many unique visits or tested visits there were. So your lift percentage, this is the relative lift between two variations. And I've seen even some reports that come out that actually get this part incorrect. Where, okay, so here's an example. So you have a 4% conversion rate and a 3% conversion rate, which is there's a 33% lift from the 3% to the 4% there. But I've seen actually people report that there was a 1% lift, or a 1% change. Yes, there's a 1% change, and that's just really, they're looking at the difference between the two percentages, but really you want to know what that lift percentage is between them, which is that 33.33% lift. And that's what's being reported on in your testing technologies, okay? So really what you're doing is you're just doing, an analysis of, it's the quotient between these two rates is really what this is. All right. So your confidence rate, and you'll hear me talk about this a lot because this is what's really going to dictate whether something's conclusive or not. All right. And confidence rate is a measurement that shows the reliability of the test results. And so this helps avoid a type 1 error or something called the false positive. And a false positive is when you see a change, and if you see a lift, and it's actually not due to the changes you made on the page itself, and it's actually due to randomness or some sort of other outside factor. All right, so the confidence rate will help you identify that yes, there is a change, and that yes, this change is not due to randomness. Okay. So now you have the conversion index, and this shows the expected conversion range. All right, so The confidence rate will just tell you, yes, there was a change, and we're fairly positive that it is due to what you have done. But the conversion index is going to show you, what the range of conversions you should expect is, okay? And you'll see this, this is shown in every testing tech there is. So you'll see, maybe you'll see there's a 10% lift or a 10% conversion rate with a plus or minus 0.05 or 0.5. So that means it could go anywhere to 10.5, as high as 10.5%, to as low as 9.5%. So that's the expected range. You shouldn't be expecting a 10% conversion rate forever. All right, that's the range you could expect to see based on the sample size. And it's really important to note that you want to make sure your conversion index is as small as possible, and the way to do that is to have a much higher sample size, or a much larger sample size, rather. So the conversion index is a very useful number that is often overlooked, especially when you see case studies out there that just report on a 33% lift and then leave it at that. They don't talk about that conversion index all that much, which is very, very important from a scaling perspective for your campaigns. All right, so conversion tech or tech tools, I've actually said that several times already in this definition section. And this is just a reference to your testing technology like Visual Website Optimizer, Optimizely. Sometimes loosely I could be referring to qualitative technologies such as Hotjar or Crazy Egg. Just know that when I say this, that's what I'm really referring to. And I just want to make sure that was put a bit more in context for you. Right, personas. I talked briefly about personas. That's more for the content marketing side of things, but also is a great way to come up with some cool qualitative insights. You can use qualitative data to help create these. And so this is really synonymous to avatar, and it's a really description of your target demographic, and is defined really at the individual level. It's a fictitious character based on your best assumptions and understanding of your target market. All right, and we actually have a really cool avatar sheet that I can add in to this section so you can just have it. So when we get into the qualitative stuff, that if this is something that you're used to doing, it's really, really worth having that sheet for upping your qualitative game. All right, now we have funnel analysis, and this is really a holistic analysis of your funnel's functionality. Is it working? And so you're looking at all the parts of this funnel and trying to understand where things are broken. And you'll see this happen a lot during the identification phase. So you have a detailed kind of roadmap for how you want people to consume content or consume offers on your site, and you want to try and find where the speed bumps are, or where if you want to take a plumbing analogy, where the leaky pipes are, where people are falling out. So this is really just the holistic analysis of your funnel's functionality. And is a great way to identify problem areas and areas that need to be optimized. There's also iterative testing. And so this is a testing process where small changes are made over time. So they make smaller scale changes that then those wins are immediately implemented, and then a new smaller change is made. And a lot of these insights are the factors that come into the next test. So it's really just, small scale changes for smaller wins, but these smaller wins are compounded. So there's just an overall growth. Iterative testing is a great process. It's very low risk, but also again, small changes heed small results in most cases. So this is an example of what I'd consider to be an iterative test. Like, this in and of itself isn't an iterative test. They just changed just because they changed a small item here, just like the button colors. How this would be an iterative test is if on their next test on this page is it implements the change, and then it's also feeding in from the information they learned from this test to create a new challenge or variation. Okay. And so now there's the radical redesign, which is a testing process where a wildly different variation is tested against the control. Okay, and so there's multiple camps between iterative and radical redesign, and I'm of the camp that says, why not both? In a lot of cases, radical redesign is a good way to go, because sometimes you just need to blow up the site and try again. Granted, if you do a radical redesign, you're not going to have a handle on what the conversion lifters were and what the conversion depressors were. You're not going to know what levers are pulling where, which is why after a radical redesign, you need to start running iterative campaigns. So really, you can see that these actually work together. A radical redesign also helps you get out of what's called the local maxima. As you're running an iterative campaign, you end up hitting just, you hit a ceiling eventually, and you're not going to get to any new level. So a radical redesign will help you get there, and an iterative testing campaign will help you move from that radical redesign and further refine. All right, and so here's an example of what I'd consider to be a radical redesign. Notice everything is different here. They're not even using the same site template anymore. They're not changing, they're not doing like an ugly A/B test where they changed multiple elements within kind of the same site template. They just blew this whole thing up. And they're both trying to do the same thing here. Like in this case, they're trying to find, the shredding service on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side, they're doing a self-segmentation by showing the different types of services. But not that interaction isn't the only thing that's changing here. From a design perspective, really from everything. They just completely blew up the site and tried something new. So, you have radical redesigns and you have iterative designs, testing, and it's worth kind of dabbling in both. So that's kind of the lingo that I'll be using a lot throughout this presentation, throughout this course. And I hope that helps make things a bit clearer as we move on, and enjoy the rest of the course.